Tonight, back on track. It's looking increasingly likely that the Commonwealth Games will be returning to Glasgow, but this time on a budget.
It was good the last time, so I remember the buzz about the city.
Oh, I don't know. Can Glasgow afford it? I don't know.
Also making the headlines, the mystery of the doorstep murder. A new investigation is opened into the killing of Nairn banker Alistair Wilson.
In sport exclusive, we speak with Brendan Rodgers ahead of Celtic's opening Champions League game this week.
We go into it with a really positive expectation to succeed and do as well as we can, and I think that's what I've always felt.
And some tartan in Tinseltown, the Scots who won big at this year's Emmy Awards.
I'm John Mackay in Glasgow.
And I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. It was the biggest sporting event in Scotland's history, and now, a decade on from the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, the Scottish Government is on the verge of agreeing a deal for the city to become host once again.
Ministers had been hesitant due to the potential costs on top of already strained public finances. But after investment from Australia, they look ready to pull the trigger. Well, Caitlin Hutchison is at the Emirates Arena for us.
Well, 2014 was the largest multi-sport and cultural event ever to be held in Scotland, costing around £472 million. But if this deal does go through, which is looking increasingly likely by the second and imminent, ministers have warned that it won't look anything like the extravaganza we saw in 2014. The plans for 2026 would be far more modest, expected to cost around £114 million. And throughout negotiations, the Scottish Government have insisted that while they're keen to see the return of the Games to Glasgow, they won't be committing any money in order to do it. When the smoke cleared on the 2014 Commonwealth Games, it was widely considered to have been a resounding success. And after the Australian state of Victoria pulled out of hosting the 2026 Games, Glasgow could once again find itself making a splash on the world stage.
The buzz about the city, and of course this place was fortune because of the swimming.
I remember being inside and seeing Ellie Simmons walking about and thinking, oh.
Can Glasgow afford it? I don't know. That's another problem.
Ideally, I would be involved either as a volunteer or even a spectator.
Encourages people to come to the area, encourages people to visit the city, which brings in money. So I don't see how there could be anything bad about having it again.
When you hold such a big event, you tend to make the city tidier and prettier and more welcoming for everyone.
But 2026 would be much more pared down, using only 4 pre-existing venues and cutting the number of disciplines featured by almost half, meaning no marathon, no road races and no diving. Hugely disappointing for athletes like 21-year-old Angus Menmuir, who made his Commonwealth debut in Birmingham 2022.
It was my dream to get to compete for Scotland at a Commonwealth Games. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's just a shame that other people won't get that opportunity, but it is really exciting, and I know there's lots of other Scottish athletes that if they get the chance to compete, then they'll do their best, and it will be really exciting to watch them compete.
Despite its stripped-back nature, business leaders at a summit with the Scottish Labour leader today told STV News it could be just the thing to kickstart economic recovery.
It's no secret that Glasgow is struggling right now. The economy feels weak. Local businesses are struggling. That's having a negative impact, of course, on jobs in the city too. And Glasgow needs a shot in the arm, and a strong shot in the arm would be us hosting the Commonwealth Games.
The messaging should be one of positivity, definitely. And the fact that the public purse, as I say, is not getting touched, we should just move forward with it, you know.
The Scottish Government appears poised to agree it will host the Games after Commonwealth Games Australia offered to bridge any budget shortfall. Their investment is on top of £100 million from the Commonwealth Games Federation and the UK Government's £2.3 million. The 2026 Games may be a bargain basement version of those we were host for in 2014. But the lengthy talks are evidence of the determination to ensure they don't become a burden on the public purse. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News in Glasgow.
The murder of the Nairn banker Alistair Wilson almost 20 years ago is to be reinvestigated. The father of two was shot and hit the doorstep of his home by an assassin who's still on the loose.
In the decades since, police have continued to investigate the murder, but no charges have ever been brought. Ian Ramage reports now on what's become one of Scotland's longest-running unsolved crimes.
Alistair Wilson's shooting was unprecedented in a peaceful seaside town. For his family and other Nairn residents, the sense of shock is still tangible. He and his wife Veronica were putting their two young sons to bed that Sunday evening when a stranger called, asked for him by name, offered an envelope and then shot him several times. Mr Wilson died en route to hospital in Inverness. There have been no arrests and no motive established. Scotland's top law officer, Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain, has decided a fresh investigation is needed to solve what she called a deeply disturbing crime. A new team of prosecutors from the Crown Office, Procurator Fiscal Service and Police Scotland is being brought in. The move has been welcomed in Nairn.
I'm always very optimistic, but this cold officers coming in, I think that will make a difference. I think they'll find something that the previous investigations didn't find. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed this time that we can get this episode closed once and for all.
As a fresh team of investigators is assembled, police have again urged anyone with information to contact them. They say they continue to seek justice for the Wilson family and the wider community. A couple of years ago, Mr Wilson's son Andrew, who was just 4 at the time of the killing, said they deserved answers. After all he had left of his father was photographs.
Ian Ramage reporting. This week marks 10 years since Scotland voted to remain part of the United Kingdom. The independence referendum was at times heated, but engaged large parts of the population in the debate over the nation's future.
Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie has been looking back at the campaign with some of those at the heart of the debate. His report contains flash photography from the start.
In May 2011, the SNP sent shockwaves across Scotland's political landscape.
When we saw the overall majority, we thought it was likely that Westminster would concede the referendum. Now, it wasn't plain sailing because obviously there was lots of blocks and tackles and nefarious activity and perfidious reasoning from Westminster.
To an extent, the SNP had kind of broken the election machinery in Scotland. Nobody expected them to get a majority. But yes, almost as soon as we saw that there had been one, a majority achieved, yes, of course there was going to have to be a referendum on independence.
In October 2012, David Cameron and Alex Salmond met here at St Andrew's House after months of negotiations between the two governments. They signed the Edinburgh Agreement, giving power to the Scottish Parliament to legislate for a referendum. The deal also handed Holyrood the decision over the timing of the vote, the franchise, and the wording of the question on the ballot paper. Scotland's future laid out a blueprint for a new state, promising a more prosperous and equal nation.
Scotland's future is now in Scotland's hands.
The Chancellor travelled to Edinburgh and unequivocally ruled out a currency union.
If Scotland walks away from the UK, it walks away from the pound.
Less than 2 weeks before the vote, a Sunday Times poll put support for yes in the lead for the first time.
They looked at that poll and suddenly realised they were in danger of losing and regrouped their campaign around what was called the vow, which was basically a soft option. We'll give you everything you want. We'll give you Devil Max. You don't have to risk independence. And of course, some of the people had just come across to yes. That was a pretty attractive offer.
It re-energised the team. It gave them a sense of, OK, we're getting to the closing stages here, and we better empty everything that we've got.
On the eve of the poll, both campaigns made their final push.
This is our opportunity of a lifetime, and we must seize it with both hands.
Let's keep our UK pound. Let's keep our UK passport. Let's keep our UK passport.
When the counting began, the huge turnout emerged, reaching 84.5%. In the early hours of the 19th of September, victory was confirmed for the no side.
The people of Scotland have spoken.
I think I felt relieved. I felt utterly spent, but it was relief more than joy, which I didn't respect. And it certainly wasn't triumphalism.
Could we have won? Perhaps. I think at the end of the day, my judgment would be it was just a bridge too far.
And our political editor Colin Mackay will be taking a longer look back on the independence referendum with a panel of guests on this evening's Scotland Tonight. Now, the immigration system is guaranteeing destitution and homelessness for thousands of people in Scotland. New research found charities and other organisations are stepping in to prevent extreme poverty for those stuck in the system.
Going hungry or surviving on less than £40 a week is commonplace. Vanessa Taff has more.
When Annie fled her home country for her family's safety, she also left behind a high-powered job and financial security. Her experience with the immigration system was confusing and dehumanising.
People seeking protection should be treated with more dignity. Give the process some human face. Leaving your home country, leaving everything you know, you own, you worked for, you've achieved in life, to start as a nobody, as an intruder, it's a huge sacrifice.
She was initially placed in temporary accommodation with her 3 children.
I remember the first day at the hotel, because by the time we got in, there was about 9 p.m. So practically went to bed hungry, but we just managed to take that white rice with milk. So either you eat it or you go hungry. So
Annie faced eviction from her temporary home and struggled to get any information about her legal status. But this experience isn't unique. 2/3 of people in the immigration system reported going hungry or being forced to skip meals. Many even went without basic clothing and toiletries. 93% reported being homeless, with more than half sleeping rough.
Because of the levels of disadvantage experienced, people's health, people's mental and physical health is affected. And for that reason, we see accident and emergency departments and charities trying to pick up the pieces of this entirely preventable crisis.
With Scotland in the throes of a housing emergency, there isn't enough accommodation for the numbers of people seeking refuge.
Housing is an important stepping stone for meaningful, dignified integration. And if people don't have a roof above their head and if they're destitute and homeless, we cannot expect them to be part of our society.
The Home Office say they're working towards removing barriers like no recourse to public funds. But the reality is, it's unlikely the pressures facing the system, impacting people like Annie, will change anytime soon. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Let's take a look at other stories now. And the family of missing Edinburgh mum Kasia Smith have set up a fundraiser to buy a memorial after police announced they think she is dead. The 35-year-old was last seen last October. A 39-year-old man, John Byrne, has been charged with her murder, but a body hasn't been found. Her family say they are heartbroken not knowing where she is.
A 54-year-old man has been convicted of terrorism and firearms offences after weapons were seized at his home in Falkirk. Alan Edward also shared videos and images online of a racist, homophobic and violent nature, including information associated with extreme right-wing groups.
And Scottish group Texas have been announced as this year's headliner for Edinburgh's Hogmanay celebrations. The band, fronted by Charlene Spiteri, will perform their greatest hits in Princes Street Gardens to usher in the new year.
A man has appeared in court charged with attempted murder after a 40-year-old was found injured on a street in Paisley on Friday. Emergency services were called to George Street shortly before midnight and the man was taken to hospital. 31-year-old Sean Little made no plea. A search is underway for a man who was last seen by his neighbours in Ayrshire last night. 47-year-old Brian Kennedy was last seen at around 7 p.m. and may have been in Troon in the early hours of this morning. Officers say he has access to a car and may be in possession of camping gear. Talks are still ongoing this evening to decide whether a controversial Flamingoland resort can go ahead on the shores of Loch Lomond. Concerns have been raised about the environmental impact the development could have if it goes ahead, but others think it would give a much-needed economic boost. Vidushi Tiwari reports.
A £40 million development on the Bonnie Banks. Plans for Flamingo Land include a monorail, water park resort and lodges. Today's deliberations began with a site visit, followed by a meeting where 13 speakers laid out their arguments.
It's tough times for tourism business just now, so having the spend of quite a number of visitors staying overnight and on a year-round basis, it will be address seasonality and other issues as well.
There is development needed on the site that they're talking about, but it should be development that's sympathetic to the place and sympathetic to the loch.
It's been controversial ever since the proposals were first submitted in 2018. They've since garnered more than 150,000 objections.
It was once branded the most unpopular planning application in Scottish history. Earlier this month, a report by the National Park Authority's Director of Place recommended the plans for Flamingo Land be rejected, saying the area was a flood risk and the removal of trees and foliage would deter from the park's environmental goals. However, those in favour of the development say that recommendation was rooted in misinformation.
I think it's been stirred up very largely on social media, and unfortunately there's been a large amount of misinformation, which I think has skewed the whole debate. What's not to like? They are going to improve what is quite a degraded area. Balloch deserves better than it's got.
Protesters fear a development of this size could take away from the area's natural charm.
This development, would dominate Balloch. It's far too large for the village of Balloch. We need to look at something that's smaller, that's more in keeping with the environment of Loch Lomond. People don't come to Loch Lomond for Flamingo Land, they come to Loch Lomond for Loch Lomond.
But developers insist supporting biodiversity would be their main aim.
It's a site that's had railway sidings on it, it's had gravel quarries on it, it's had a dye factory on it in the past, so it's a brownfield site. And the whole plan for Lomond Banks is to support and enhance biodiversity.
It's only a matter of time before a decision is reached, with the future of this land hanging in the balance. Vidushi Tiwari, STV News in Balloch.
He's back. Don't switch off. It's Raman with the sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
As charming as ever. Good evening. Brendan Rodgers says Celtic go into this season's Champions League with positive expectations as they aim to reach the last 16 of the revamped tournament. The Parkhead side kick off their campaign at home to Slovan Bratislava on Wednesday night. And speaking to STV Sport, Rodgers has warned against playing down the danger the Slovakian side will pose. Well, as we found out, the Celtic manager was giving a different team talk today.
You're off on Thursday. Yeah. Fantastic. What an achievement, eh?
A day to remember for Scotland's homeless World Cup team, who got a few tips from Brendan Rodgers ahead of their flight to Seoul later this week for this year's tournament.
Chance to come and meet them, obviously, before they go out to Korea on Thursday is so nice. I obviously have known David from the first time I come up here, and the work that he's done for street soccer and throughout the UK is absolutely incredible, really.
Players with a chance to meet one of their players, Yang, who's from South Korea, to ask questions and ask about different cultural things and stuff like that. And it's been a great opportunity for the guys.
As Rodgers puts some players to the test, the Celtic manager is also preparing his team for their Champions League adventure. How determined are you to try and take Celtic to the next level?
Very much so. I think it's the next level for us is to be competitive. To be competitive in Europe, that's what we want. We could have spent a lot more money and might not have got to the position that some people want us to be in. But what's most important at Celtic is that we've been able to strengthen the squad over the summer.
The aim is to try and get to the last 16, either through the playoffs or through the automatic qualification. How well equipped do you think the squad is to achieve that?
Well, we're very determined. I think it's just a case of, we get some very, very tough games, but we go into it with a really positive expectation to succeed and do as well as we can, and I think that's what I've always felt.
On Saturday, Celtic equalled their 118-year record by winning their first 5 league games without conceding a goal. Referee Colin Stephen awarded Hearts a penalty in the first half, but this was overturned following a VAR review. Stephen initially ruled James Penrice's handball in the box shouldn't be penalised, but after being called to the monitor, the official pointed to the spot. Arnie Engels scored to open his account for the champions. And another deadline day signing, Luke McCowan also scored his first goal for the club to seal Celtic's win. Now the full focus is on Slovan Bratislava on Wednesday night.
People always look at teams and measure teams, and because they're maybe not so well known, they might think that's an easy game. There's no easy games at this level. You know, teams that are normally playing in the Champions League are teams that are used to winning.
Hearts are in talks over a potential £10 million investment proposal from Brighton owner Tony Bloom. STV Sport understands the deal would revolve around the use of Bloom's sports analysis company Star Lizard for identifying and signing new players. An agreement could lead to Star Lizard taking a minority stake in the Tynecastle club if agreed by fan ownership body, the Foundation of Hearts. Now, after Dave King offered to make a return as Rangers chairman, STV Sport understands this is unlikely to happen, with interim chairman John Gilligan set to remain in the post for a number of months. On the pitch, defender Robin Proper is relishing the team's return to Ibrox this weekend and hopes it can act as a catalyst for their season, that following their win over Dundee United yesterday. Here's Jamie Borthwick.
After a month on the road, with home fixtures having to be played at Hampden due to a delay in refurbishment at Ibrox, Rangers are heading back to their home with the hope that it can be a catalyst for their season.
That's one of the reasons you come to Rangers, to be part of that with the fans, in the stadium, and I'm really glad that it's now going to happen, and I hope we can improve and do a lot of good things there.
Philippe Clement was proud of his players' reaction after a heavy Derby defeat and singled out newcomer Hamza Egamani for praise.
If it would been 1 year later, we could never afford that kind of players. He coming straight out of a Moroccan competition, Moroccan culture, everything is new for him. He was also injured when he came, so it took time to get him more fit.
Both managers admitted the draw was a fair result as VAR came under the microscope at St Mirren versus Kilmarnock. Derek McInnes was furious there was no check on this incident involving Sean Rooney, but admitted Joe Wright let the side down with a painful grab on Rooney, which earned him a red card. After the 10 men drew level, St Mirren thought they had a winner, but VAR again stepped in and the goal was ruled out for a foul. Hibs are up and running with a league victory, and it was relief for David Gray, who could feel the nerves on and off the field before Martin Boyle netted his 100th career goal to seal a 2-0 win. And with Motherwell chasing a 2-1 deficit late in the game at Pittodrie, Stuart Kettlewell was upset that the final whistle was blown too quickly as his side were chasing an equaliser.
We stopped in 45 seconds when we turned the ball over on the halfway line. I approached the ref after the game the way I'm speaking to you just now. He asked why we didn't get a full minute, because would we have scored? I don't know, but we certainly would have played forward and asked a question, and he told me it was subjective and to go away and stop causing trouble, which I find remarkable, to be honest with you.
Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
Now, if they can win it, we can win it. The words of Edinburgh Rugby head coach Sean Everett, who says his team can take inspiration from Glasgow Warriors' triumph in the United Rugby Championship last season. Everett is full of belief on the eve of the new URC campaign, with the capital side hosting Leinster this Friday night.
You know, we're so happy with what Glasgow achieved. You know, even though we rival clubs, it's good for Scotland that we have a URC champion team. So I think it also builds a bit of belief that if they can do it, we can do it. We're capable of beating anyone in this competition, and that's a belief we've got to take into this season now, that every Saturday we're prepared to win it regardless of who the opposition is.
And that, folks, is all of your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Well, we've enjoyed a bright autumnal day. Let's get the forecast now from Sean.
A dry start to the day. will become increasingly splashy. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. I'm just back from a few days in Spain. It seems as if I brought the high pressure back with me. Plenty of fine, sunny, warm weather round in the next couple of days. It's a bit ironic, isn't it, that we've ended up with high pressure mostly through September, meteorologically, technically speaking, autumn. June, July, August, really didn't have high pressure around very often. So the weather has been a bit more settled, and that's the way it's going to be over the next couple of days. And I say warm too. Now overnight tonight, a lot of dry weather, clear spells. A chilly night to come, especially across southern parts. Stirlingshire, South Lanarkshire into the borders, Dumfries and Galloway. That's where the lowest temperatures will be, 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. A little bit milder, warmer in the northwest. And the risk around the likes of Ardnamurchan, Mallaig and Morar, Mull. We'll see some shower outbreaks of light drizzly rain also across Colin-Tyree as well. Here tomorrow morning we start with quite a bit of cloud, but that cloud slowly drifts away. Elsewhere, blue skies through much of the day, especially further south. Top temperatures are a little bit higher than today. Today, 17, 18. Tomorrow, we're up to about 20 degrees Celsius. Glasgow, North Lanarkshire, Stirlingshire and also around Falkirk and West Lothian. So lots of sunshine to come on Wednesday. I expect the temperatures could be a little bit higher. The likes of Inveraray and also around Oban, maybe 21 degrees Celsius. A lot of fine, warm weather to come in the next couple of days. Get out there and enjoy it. We start to see a wee bit more cloud coming back in though by the time we get to the weekend. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, Scotland shone at the Emmy TV Awards in Los Angeles last night with big wins for the controversial drama Baby Reindeer and its creator Richard Gadd.
The kilts were out in force at the star-studded ceremony as actor Alan Cumming also picked up an award for his role presenting the US version of The Traitors, which was shot at a castle in the Highlands.
I want to thank everyone in the castle at Ardross, the cast and crew who work so hard and get so wet by the Scottish weather. I also want to thank Scotland. I owe it everything, and it's such a beautiful co-star.
Look, 10 years ago, I was down and out, right? I never ever thought I'd get my life together. I never ever thought I'd be able to rectify myself with what had happened to me and get myself back on my feet again. And then here I am, just over a decade later, picking up one of the biggest writing awards in television, yeah?
Oh, great to see Scotland well represented in LA.
Absolutely. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.